Hello again. This is it. This is it. This is my favorite books of the year video. This is the video I've been reading for all this year. I don't read for this video, but I am constantly thinking, is this my favorite one? I loved this. Is this my favorite one? I have never quite had such a difficult time deciding what my favorite book of the year is. And it was very hard this year because I have had so many favorites. And I'm going to show them all to you. I'm going to share them all with you right now. And I'm going to do it fairly quickly, I say. I intend to do it fairly quickly. But remember, these are my favorites. And so I will have things to say. They're all stacked in special stacks in front of me. I'm just surrounded by a multitude of greatness. And we should just dive in. I have it broken into 5 categories. There are 4 books in the first category. In no particular order for the first category. These are what I have called the rose gold recipients. I don't know what they're receiving. It doesn't matter. But these are the rose gold recipients. They're like honorable mentions, okay? The first one on that list is Our Infinite Fates by Laura Steven. Now, just because I'm saying this first, and it's the first book I'm talking about, doesn't mean it's my least favorite of the year. Until we get to my first favorite book, until we get to my top 5, there is no order. There's no order, okay? Beyond the stacks. So the first rose gold recipient is Our Infinite Fates. What I loved about this one was the characters. I loved the characters. The storyline was hard to predict. It's a time travel reincarnation romance. The two, I haven't read up on these at all, so, and I do remember what I read. I'm not one of those people that's like, I read it and I've completely forgotten. I know those people exist. That's not me. I will forget characters' names, but I don't forget story as a general rule. If I have forgotten the story completely, I did not enjoy that book. So if I get, all of that to say, if I get some things slightly wrong while talking about these books, forgive me. Some of them, like this one, I haven't read since January or February. Our Infinite Fates is about 2 lovers who keep being reincarnated over and over and over, one always hunting the other. And before they turn, I believe, 17, one has to kill the other. And it's not an either or thing. One in each lifetime is the determined killer and one is the determined runner. And in this, when this opens, our characters are in male and female bodies. We haven't seen the male. The female has reincarnated into a family in which she is the one who can donate, I believe, bone marrow to save her sister in this life's life. And so she's about to turn 17. And so she's hoping that something can be honored for that. Lots of crazy stuff happened in this. It's very, very fun, very worth the rose gold designation. Next is Promise Me Sunshine by Kara Bastone. So this one is about a young woman who has lost her very best friend to cancer. And she is, I believe she's babysitting or she's gonna be the nanny or something. It's not her normal job for a woman, and she meets the little girl's uncle, and he too, unbeknownst to her, has gone through a great deal of grief, and together they help each other. And I thought this was just such a beautiful, beautiful love story because they care about each other and love each other throughout, to the best of their ability, throughout. Now, the best of their ability, because they're carrying a lot of pain, is not always that great. But they never aim to hurt each other in any way. And I just think he, in particular, is such a beautiful, beautiful character that has been created. I remember feeling very, very surprised by this one. And I remember thinking, when I closed the book, that is how a romance should be written. Next is what I believe I called in my 5 Things review on Bookstagram. I believe I called this the perfect book for me. Obviously, it's not getting the #1 spot this year, but I did really love this. There is walking involved in this. If you know me, I'm a big walker. I love to walk. It decompresses me. It clears my mind. It jumpstarts my creativity. I love walking. And there's lots of big, long walks in this. There's two people who are, there's a teacher in this. There's two people who are at odds with life for different reasons. And through a set of circumstances, they end up walking together, and it clears their head and it opens their heart and it helps them decompress. And there is a unfinished ending here, but there's enough here that you feel the hope at the end. You may not know what happens, and that's part of it, right? This is a journey. This book is a journey. So is life. So is their relationship. So there's enough in here of hope that you don't feel dissatisfied when it ends, but there's enough in here of unfinished business that some people really hated this book. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And the author, David Nichols, has been quoted as saying this is his favorite book that he's ever written. So I agree with him. He's the author of things like One Day. Saddest story of the entire universe. Don't get me started on One Day. The next and last Rose Gold recipient is Christine Brown Woolley for her memoir, Sister Wife. I have followed the Sister Wives since they fled Utah. I find the women and the eldest daughters to be so incredibly inspiring. And I'm not going to say any more about it. If you want to talk about Sister Wives, we can do that. But I just have found them to be so incredibly inspiring, and I have loved watching each of the wives one by one, sans Robin, leave to find themselves, to find more freedom, to find more voice, to find more opportunity to create their own life for themselves and their children instead of serving this individual who shall remain nameless. I don't think he's a bad guy, like in and of himself, but I do think that he comes from a system which has taught him that he is all important, and it's really, really tough for him to see that he's not. That's the end of that sentence, that he's not. And so I really, really enjoy hearing them raise their voices. And Christine in particular, I've been asking, why are you there since the day that I met this family. She's so funny. She's so fun. She has so much love to give. And she's just shut down over and over and over and over again throughout the years. I'm so, so happy for her. And in this, I loved how balanced and generous, but honest she is. She's like, it's not all bad. It wasn't all bad. Here's some good stuff. Growing up in a cult, it's not all bad. It's not all bad. Here's some good stuff. Also, here's this that wasn't so great. And I just really, really liked the way that she told her story. I liked her voice. She's very funny, very, very funny. We're moving into our second category, which is silver. You might think rose gold should be above silver. I don't think rose gold should be above silver. I was gonna say more, but I realized I don't really have anything else to say about that. It goes rose gold in my award. It goes rose gold, silver, gold, diamond, platinum. Wait till we get to the platinum. All right, so here we are in silver. We've got Jenny L. Walsh's Sonora. I read this pretty recently. This was my first Jenny L. Walsh, and I have thought about it a lot ever since I finished reading it. Sometimes I'm a little hesitant to put things that I just read on the stack. This definitely deserves to be here. I genuinely enjoyed this book. It is refreshing. It's wholesome. It's based on a true story, and it is wrapped up in a recent wrap-up video. So if you want to know what I thought about it, go and watch that. I think it's November. I read this one a long time ago, and when I first read it, I was like, oh wow, that's the running for my favorite book of the year, and now it's on silver. So there's a lot of good books that I read this year. This is The Rose Bargain by Sasha Payton Smith, and I just realized that the sequel is coming out in 2026, so I'm very excited about that. She usually writes duologies. Pretty sure we'll get the end to this. This is one of those fairy stories where the fairies are not nice fairies, and I prefer those. I don't really like it when your fairies are like sugary sweet. I like it when the fairies are the shadow side of being human. They're capable of love, they're capable of healing, they're capable of light, but they choose darkness. And I like a fairy story where the fairies choose darkness. I loved this. This is about, now remember, I have not read up on this. So this is about a family. They have 2 daughters. Yes, I know, maybe you also are singing the TikTok sensation, I have 1 daughter. So every time I say 2 daughters or 1 daughter, I immediately start thinking, I have 1 daughter. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, do a little digging. It's an earworm. It's an earworm. They have 2 daughters. One disappeared, but then came back, and nobody knows where she went, but she came back very different. Not different, but like sad. And the other sister ends up going to make a request of the Fairy Queen who rules this alternate England. The Fairy Queen holds like Hunger Games type thing to see who will get to marry her fairy son. Now she also has a stepson who is not a fairy or half a fairy. I think not a fairy. Ooh, I don't remember. I think not a fairy. I think one's a fairy, one's not a fairy. And she's trying to marry off her fairy son. But of course, you know, she's going to get picked for this, and she is going to, our main character, and she is going to compete, and the competition stuff is dark. It is very dark. But she's going to compete, and she's going to fall for the wrong guy. You know she is. And it ends with a wrap up of the major storylines in this one. Waiting a year or more hasn't been hard, but there are things that are unresolved that I do really want to know. So I love Sasha Payton Smith's writing, and I am looking forward to reading the sequel to this. But this is a silver. This one took me by such surprise. I did not know. So I liked the premise. I liked the premise a lot, and I got it from Book of the Month. And then I started reading it, and I thought, oh no, this is more weird than maybe I want. And then I just couldn't stop reading, and I loved it. That is, I think it's Eiling or Ashley Rawle, her The Compound, a novel. This is a messed up but brilliant book. It is about, this one like best sci-fi or something? This should not be a sci-fi. I mean, maybe there is some sci-fi element to it, but it's weird. The premise is that it's the future and things are not going great in the world. There is another war going on, and we don't really know much about all of that because we're in the compound. The Compound is a reality TV show where contestants arrive, sometimes drugged, sometimes passed out, sometimes on their own 2 feet. They arrive at the compound, and every moment of their lives is recorded. Bathroom stalls have no doors on them. Doors have no locks on them. They don't have all the things they need to create a life. They have some basic needs for the beginning, for establishing themselves as a group. But then they're given tasks or challenges. Some are group tasks and some are individual tasks. If they have an individual task, they can't really tell you or the people in the compound what their task is. They just have to try to accomplish it without anybody knowing what they're trying to do. And if they can do that, then they receive a predetermined, prearranged award. Group tasks can get them things like meat, doors, jacuzzis. Individual tasks can get them things like food, chocolate, fuzzy slippers, things like this. Things that are very expensive or impossible to come by outside of the compound in the real world. All of these people, also you get like brand deals. So when you leave, you have the opportunity to continue these brand deals. So it's kind of like if you participate in this and you survive, there's no like out and out killing of anybody for the most part, but it's really hard to survive. It's a very difficult situation. And so if you survive this, especially if you get to the end, if you're not kicked off the island, so to speak, kicked out of the compound, then you've kind of set yourself up for survival outside the compound. And they vote people out. They vote people out, or sometimes people choose volunteer to leave, or sometimes people die, or sometimes it's part of the challenge. So this is a brutal book. It was a brutal book that you feel so uncomfortable in for most of the time, because for most of the time, you don't know what's going on. And by the time you understand what's going on, they understand what's going on. And by the time they understand what's going on, there's an added thing happening. This is a book that feels so slow at the beginning, and then it ends so fast. And you're like, what was that it? I loved this. I actually love this. That surprises me about myself. It's not a book that if I had known what I was going into, I think I would have picked up at all, and I loved it. Also silver, A Little Daylight Left by Sarah Kay. Sarah Kay is my favorite living poet. I got to see her read from this. I listened to it. She's up for an audio Emmy for this. It's excellent. It's wonderful. It's a silver only because I don't think I'll ever read the whole thing again. It's poetry. But as you can see, there are many poems that I left in this. And yeah, I think it was back in August. Maybe it's in the August wrap up. It might be the July wrap up, where when I'm wrapping up, I actually read several of these poems throughout the wrap up. So check out July or August wrap up and you can hear more about this. Favorite living poet. Such a good poet. Love it. Love her. This was one of the very first books that I read. I would say it's probably maybe one of the first 3 books I read in 2025. It was recommended in my 12 for 12 challenge by my friend, Chris. This is The Rent Collector by Cameron Wright. And what I'm going to say about this is what I keep saying about this, and that is that the writing in this is not great. But there are passages that are amazing. The story in this is phenomenal. It's an allegory. There's a lot in here about beauty and literature and humanity. It'll make you cry a lot. It is about a family living in a literal trash heap. This is a whole town in a trash heap. And they have a baby, and the baby is sick. And they make a deal with the drunken rent collector, the woman who collects the rent, that the wife will, I don't remember what the deal is, but somehow there's a deal made that the wife will be taught to read. She'll be taught to read in exchange for something. I don't remember what the exchange was because they don't have anything. Maybe the book. Oh, she finds a book. She finds a book. That's what it is. She finds a book, and the rent collector wants the book. And so they make an exchange. And this is going to make you cry. That's all I'm going to say about this. This is going to make you cry. You're going to see a lot of her as we progress. But here we go. A silver, the first Catherine Cinder. Not all 12 Catherine Cinders made it on here. Not even the 11 that I loved made it on here. But we've got a silver Catherine Cinder here. This is The Bright Side of Disaster. This was the first time I had read this one, and I really enjoyed it. This is one of her earlier ones. This is about a woman who is pregnant. She's in a long-term relationship with a very selfish guy who, after experiencing a loss, runs away. And she, the next 24 hours, gives birth to their daughter, and he's nowhere to be found. And how she feels like she's in this relationship with him. He does write her I'm so sorry I can't do this letter. He doesn't disappear, but he becomes unreachable. She doesn't know where he is or if he's coming back, what his intentions are. She knows nothing. And so she feels like she's in this relationship with her fiance, long-term live-in, husband-like man, and their daughter, who is a newborn, just born. She feels like she's in a relationship with him, but she doesn't know if he's dead or what. And there's another guy. And it's really, really wholesome and lovely and wonderful, and so much about her and not so much about the romance. It's really, really good. I loved it. Loved it. I read this one twice. I read this one twice this year. The Folklore of Forever by Sarah Hogle. I love this series so much, and I can never remember what the name of it is. This is the Moonville. I'm just going to call it the Moonville series. There are 2 books in this series. This is the second one. This is The Folklore of Forever. And the first one is called Old Flames and New Fortunes, which when it came out 2 years ago, I also read twice. It's just so nice. It's about this small town in like Massachusetts or somewhere like that where magic is real. It's an everyday occurrence. It has the same kind of vibes as, let's say, Practical Magic. There's this cute little town. There's witches who live in this town. They're just normal people who have these special powers. And in this particular town, it is a set of sisters. And there was a grandmother. She also had this magical ability. Everybody knows that they have it, different abilities. In the first book, the sister has the ability to weave atmosphere or vibes with flowers, and she becomes a botanist. She runs a flower shop. It's that kind of a thing. It's really feel good. It's really sweet. In this one of their sisters who decided that none of it was real moved away and became an author, a historical fiction author. She has to return for reasons unstated here. She has to return, and she doesn't think that any of it's real, that they're all living a delusion, a shared delusion, until she starts to realize, oh, wait a minute, I can do this weird thing. I can do this thing that isn't normal. I'm not going to tell you what that thing is. Let the story unfold. This is a really, really delightful series. Oh, we've got 2 Victobers here to end out Silver. Wilkie Collins's Jezebel's Daughter. This was so interesting. It's tiny, it's short. But this was so interesting because it's written by a man in the Victorian era about 2 women who are made extremely powerful through who they are in society. For example, one is a widow, right? So a woman in and of herself is nothing, but a woman attached to a man's name and the man isn't there to tell her what to do or to run things, you have a powerful woman. So there are 2 powerful women, and they are at odds. Both have daughters that they are using, but one is like light and good and one is evil and dark. And things happen in this book. It's sensationalist. It's a sensationalist novel. And it is, novella. And it is glorious. It's glorious. Part of it takes place in London. Part of it takes place in Berlin. Super fascinating read. Really, really fast-paced, enjoyable, creepy dark. Loved it. Loved it. This is the Energizer Bunny of storylines. This is The Master of Ballantrae by Robert Louis Stevenson. I have enjoyed so many adventure books by this man, and I never thought I would be an adventure book person. And I have enjoyed so many adventure books by this man. Don't even know where to start with this one. There's a set of brothers, and again, one's kind of light and one's kind of dark, and well, one's very dark. This takes you all over the world. You're gonna go to the United States and fight in the not Civil War, in the Revolutionary War. You're going to go to India and fight the Raj, not with the Raj, the Raj. You're going to be in Scotland, and things are going to go wildly wrong for one brother and wildly right for another. But the brother who's getting everything wildly right is afraid of losing it all. And this is a master tale of vengeance and betrayal. And it's so fast-paced and so easy to follow and so good. It is not the kind of thing that I think that I should like not that I should like, but like, if I tell you what kind of reader I am, this is not what you're going to recommend to me, and yet I loved this. We're moving in to the gold category. There's some really good ones in gold here. For example, the book that took my life by storm in the month of November, Cashel Mara. Cashel Mara by Susan Howich. I've talked so much about this book. If you want to see what I thought about it, go ahead and watch that November wrap up. It literally took my life by storm. Cashel Mara. Oh, I loved this one so much. I thought it was so clever and so funny and so wonderful and so thought-provoking. My historian mind and my literary mind and my story-loving mind just absolutely loved everything about this experience. That was Evelina. Evelina by Frances Burney. And I read this for Jane Austen July, and it was a phenomenal experience. Highly recommend Evelina. It is a novel of manners, of course. You'll see a lot of humor in this. It's also epistolary. So if you are looking for something for epistolary January and you want to try classic, I strongly suggest you pick this one up. It is told entirely through letters and diary entries, and it's delightful. Absolutely delightful. Less delightful, but just as thrilling, and also read during Jane Austen July, was Anne Radcliffe's The Italian. I love Anne Radcliffe. I love when she goes off on her, like, let me tell you about the shrubbery. Like when she spends 40 pages describing the mountain range. I love it. I absolutely love it. But I love the dark, depressing, scary, wild, dastardly things that happen in her novels as well. She's a sensationalist writer, but she's a gothic sensationalist writer. You know what? That Wilkie Collins was also very gothic. But she's the queen of the goths here. And this does not disappoint in that regard. This is about a young man who falls in love with an unsuitable woman. She just doesn't have enough name or clout or money. And so his parents, his mother in particular, pays to have her stolen and taken. She traffics her to a nunnery where this girl refuses to give up the fight. She will not silently lie down and die a nun. She will not stop proclaiming that her love is going to find out where she is and come and save her. Now, they don't know that it's his mother at this point. Mom is playing it totally chill. She's like, I don't know what happened. Maybe the woman just left. She did not love you, son. And so he is looking for her actively, trying to find her, using all of his resources to locate her. And he does. And he gets her just in the nick of time for them to run away together. And in the course of trying to find someone to marry them, have all sorts of more terrible things happen to them. This is a joy. An absolute joy. Highly recommend The Italian by Anne Radcliffe. This one should really, you know what? I'm gonna make a move right now. I'm gonna move this one from gold to diamond. And we'll talk about it in a minute. This one is still a gold. This next one is still a gold. That was Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. I really enjoyed this one, and I'm really looking forward to the fact that there is a companion novel in this world that's coming out in 2026. This one is about two grown-ups. I think one of the things that I love about Abby Jimenez is that her people are grown-ups, right? They are adults. They make adult decisions for adult reasons. They're not, they're not whimish. And they may be fearish, but they're not whimish. And I really like that. That doesn't mean there's no whimsy in this. There absolutely is. Like, for example, the conversation where she asks him whether or not he would still love her if she were, I think she said a worm, an earthworm. And I think that was like a social media thing, that it was in here and their conversation about it is just the height of whimsy. So there is whimsy in here, but they don't make decisions on a whim. And I'm not frustrated by her characters and their decision making. This is about two people who meet under less than perfect circumstances, have the perfect imperfect date, and then have to split ways because one is moving to the West Coast. And they decide that they shouldn't try and make this work, except they can't stop thinking about each other. And so they give it a try, against their own, what they think is their own better judgment. And it's tough and it's hard, and there's a lot of really tough stuff going on in this, because the reason why one of the characters had to move to the West Coast is that their parent is in the early stages of dementia. And so there's a lot of really like real world hard stuff going on in this book, and the relationship isn't easy, but it's real. It's real and it's lovely, and I love them both. I absolutely love them both. He's a veterinarian. Love them both. Love them both. Oh, this was another 12 and 12, and I adored it. I think about it a lot. This is By Any Other Name by Jodi Picoult. I read this in January or February. February. It would have been February. I still think about it. This is the one where it's dual timeline. It's about the woman. I'm not going to remember her name. I never remember her name. Emilia Bassano, who is an alternate possible Shakespeare, right? A person who this book deals with, on one level, a female playwright who is working against the misogyny of her trade. And in the other timeline, it is a woman, an Italian woman in the 1500s, who's sold as kind of like a courtesan or a concubine to, not a concubine is not the right word, a mistress. She's sold to be a lord's or a duke's or somebody's mistress, a baron or somebody in the 1500s. And there she is exposed to court, she's exposed to beauty, to literature, to poetry, to music, to art. She learns all these things, and she already has that bent anyway within her, just naturally. And she begins to write her own things under assumed names. And it's a great book. It's a great book. It deals with the question of, who is Shakespeare? Who actually is he? She, they. Victober, showing up, Trollope, showing up on favorites of the year again. Yeah, so I loved He Knew He Was Right. This is the third year in a row that I've read a Trollope that I liked. I really enjoyed this. Apparently it's his longest work, and it didn't feel that long to me. This is a very messed up story about a man who marries a woman who is British, but she grew up, I think, Malaysia. She grew up overseas, and therefore she's a little bit free. She doesn't necessarily know like the social norms of London. He marries her, brings her home to London, where she makes some social errors that put her in the negative spotlight with some of the older women in society, and he starts to get all weird with her. He starts to feel like he's supposed to control her. And one of the things he loved about her was her free-spirited nature and how she wasn't like conformed or programmed, right? She is loyal to him, and he starts to think, what if she's not loyal to me? He starts to equate obedience with marital loyalty. And there's this guy, her godfather, her father's best friend, who is in England some of the time. And when he's in England, he wants to stop by and check on her and have conversations about their family. She grew up with him. He's like an uncle. She's known him forever. But husband starts thinking, well, he's known for being a womanizer, and maybe he's got his sights on my wife, his goddaughter, her uncle-ish person. I suppose that is possible. You never really get a clear like indication of what his intentions are. I think that Trollope is really smart in that what you think his intentions are kind of reveal who you are. And so I think this is brilliantly done. It's incredibly frustrating, but also like you can't look away. It's the perfect car crash book. And it has the only ending it could possibly have, and I loved it. This was a reread for me. I'll reread it again this year for hardcore literature, but this is Beowulf. I couldn't not put it on here because I genuinely had just one of the best reading experiences of the year rereading this book. I adore this translation. This is the translation by Maria Devana Headley, and it is well worth anybody's time. Love this, love this. This is The Secret Book of Flora Lee by Patty Callahan Henry. This is a dual timeline when I think about describing the kinds of books I love, this is the kind of book I describe. So when I say I loved things like The Compound, you can see how very different those things are. This is a dual timeline mystery about a girl who goes missing. So there's these two sisters, and during World War II, but this is not a World War II book. I really don't enjoy very many World War II books anymore. But in England, during the Blitz, two girls are sent to go live in the country. And while living in the country, they're living with this kind of bohemian family, and they have a lot of freedom. And one day, the younger of the two girls goes missing and is not found. The older sister carries this guilt with her everywhere. Like, she carries it with her always. And she becomes a rare book seller. She used to tell her younger sister stories, and suddenly a book crosses her desk, which is those stories. And they were stories that she made up for her younger sister. So she's thinking, I didn't write the book. Nobody heard me tell these stories. My sister must be out there somewhere, and she's written this book of the stories I used to tell her. And thus begins the hunt. The hunt. And there's lots of twists and turns, and it's really, really great. It's a really great book. It's a really great story. Here we go. We're entering the diamonds. The diamonds. So the one that I moved from gold to diamond was When the Day Comes by Gabrielle Meyer. And in the end, in the moment, I decided to do that move because of the impact that this series has had on me this year. I read this one back in January, and I have read 4 of the books in the series in 1 year, which is without a plan, like without planning to, without owning them. I have done this. And that's better than I do a lot of the time when I own a series and go into it at the beginning of the year with a plan to read the whole thing. So you know that I was loving this series. The first book it sets the scene. This is the first book. It sets the scene for understanding that in this reality, there are individuals who are born with the, I'm going to say ability, but it's not really a choice, I don't think. They're born with the ability to time travel, and they time travel in this way. They are alive in one year as the person in that 1 year, let's say 1700, and they go to sleep in 1700, and they wake up as in a different body, as a different person with a different life in another year, say like 1920. And so when they go to sleep in 1920, then the next time they'll wake up in 1700, and then they go to sleep in 1700, the next time they wake up in 1920, and thus they continue to have these dual lives going on at the same time. And when they are about to turn 21, they have to decide which life they want to wake up in for the last time, like which life they're going to keep, because the one they don't wake up in, that person that they are in that life will die. So it will be close to them forever. And so they have to decide, am I going to be a 1700s girly or guy? Sometimes they're guys. Or am I going to be a 1920 girly? And sometimes the decisions are made for them, like seemingly in this one. And I really, really, really was taken by storm by this first book. The second book was really hard for me to get through, but then everybody kept talking about how much they loved the third book. I read the third book, absolutely loved it. I guess I read 3, not 3, because I have the 4th one for January. I loved the third one. I loved the first one. I gave this to my sister for Christmas because I want her to read it. I have influenced some of you to start reading it. Great series, great writing, really great storytelling, interesting concept. I've never seen time travel done that way, and I find it fascinating. Okay, these two come as a package because I read them the same month. I don't know if I read them back to back, but I definitely read them the same month. And that is This Ordinary Stardust and When Breath Becomes Air, both of which are about people dealing with cancer and with death. I loved both of these books, and I cried desperately through both of these books. They're both true stories. They're both memoirs. One is from the perspective of someone who loses someone to cancer, and one is from the perspective of the person who is dying with cancer. And wowzers. Oh, this one surprised me too, that I loved it this much, but I really did. And that is The Lovely War by Julie Berry. Yeah, this is kind of a sleeper, older, I'd say it's probably about 10 years old, YA, and it's a World War II. I just got done saying I don't really like World War II books anymore that much, but this is one that I loved because it is also about the Greek gods. And when the book starts, is it Aphrodite? Yeah. Aphrodite is on trial. Her husband has put her on trial, and he wants to know if she actually loves him or not. And so Aphrodite is pulling out these examples of the way that she's helped other people fall in love. And so you're reading about these humans who have been kind of manipulated by Aphrodite and other gods. And you're also reading through this trial of Aphrodite trying to prove, without losing any of her swagger, that she loves her husband, who feels like she does not. And it's really, really such an interesting way to tell a story, and it's so well done, and there's such beautiful writing in this book. Oh my goodness. I don't know if I just missed it because it came out before I was on BookTube, but this book should get so much more love than it actually gets. Really, really good. All right, here is our next. Nope, I'm gonna put that one over there. It didn't belong on this stack. It really didn't. It was in the wrong place. I didn't make a change. It was in the wrong place. So here's our next one. This is Philippa Gregory's Dark Tides. This is the second in a trilogy. I read the first one in 2024, and the last two, I just read the third one last month. This month, December. Time. What is time? I just read the third one in December, but the second one is the one that really sticks with me. I read this one back in January, February, or March, somewhere early. I think January, actually. And I really, really love this one. The second one, I love Tidelands. I love the first one. It's what got me into wanting to read the whole trilogy, but the second one is so exciting. It's like an adventure novel. It's all the Philippa Gregory things that you love, but there's this element of adventure in it that I really, really liked. It also went to places like Venice or Indian War era United States that I don't read a lot of fiction about for that time period. And yeah, I found it really fascinating, found it really engaging, found it really heartbreaking, loved the character development in this. Like, usually second books are my least favorite, and this second book is my most favorite in the trilogy. You can't just read the second book. You have to read the first one, and you have to read the third one, because it's about like the same families, the same characters throughout. But the second book is so good. So good. This author is a hit or a miss for me. I'm not surprised that I love this one, but also it's been a long time since I loved one by this author, and that is Adriana Trigiani, The View from Lake Como. So this one is about a woman who is in this big Italian family in upstate New York, and maybe New Jersey. I think it's upstate New York. She feels like her uncle is her very best friend. She's his business partner. She designs the marble bathrooms and things that he then contracts. And they import all of their marble, they import Carrara marble. And they are going to go to Italy to see, like, this will be her first big trip overseas. She's the one in the family, she's the child in the family who's given up all her dreams for her siblings and everybody else. And so she's making do with what she has while her, one of her siblings is becoming a doctor and the other's gotten married and has, multiple children. And these are things that she didn't want to be a doctor, but like she wanted to study and she wanted to go to college and she wanted to be married to a man who she was in love with. And none of these things have worked out for her. And, there is an ex who she has divorced for reasons, and the whole town is like, oh, but he still loves you, you're gonna get back together, and it drives her nuts, right? Like, she can't go buy ice cream without being told, no, don't you worry, you're gonna get back together. She's lived her life for other people her entire life, and that hasn't always been her choice. And she's going to go with her uncle to Italy, and it's going to be this big adventure. And then he gets very sick, and he's in the hospital. And as he's dying, he's like, all this happens very early in the book. I'm not giving you really any spoilers, but he is dying, and he's like, you're going to inherit the business, and there's going to be some problems. some tax evasion problems, some offshore bank accounts, some big problems that you're going to inherit and you're going to have to fix. And the FBI knows that she has nothing to do with it, but they're very involved, and they need to see all the records, and they need to figure all of this out, and they need her to tell them everything she knows. And also, she's going to Italy. And she needs to face up to her family, and she needs to become her own person. And it's just such a great little feel-good finding yourself story. There's, of course, romance in it. There's the ex, but there's a new guy too. It's a lovely book. Oh, how I loved my time with this book. Talk about beautiful writing. It's a beautiful cover too. This is The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. Cannot wait for the second book in this. There are some really great characters in this. What I really loved, I loved the story. I did, but what I loved more than the story was the character development and the relationships between the characters. Yeah, everything about this. If you like a good fantasy, but you don't think you're a fantasy reader, this may be the book for you. Oh, this one is nothing I would have ever chosen. Ever. I really loved this book. This is The Bombshell by Darrow Farr. And this is so different from anything that I will ever want to read. It has things in it that I literally avoid. So this takes place in a really hot environment. I very rarely read books that take place in a hot environment. It is about a kidnapping. I don't like to read true crime things. I will watch them, but I don't like to read them. Not that this is true, but it reads a little bit like a true crime. It's about a really unlikable female character. I really don't like it when I don't like the main character. She's supposed to be unlikable, though. It is about a woman, or a girl, she's really a girl, who falls in love with her captor and joins their side as she starts to realize that what they're politically fighting for is actually valid. And it leads to some irreversible choices. And it's really harsh, and it's really dark, and it's really intense, and it's really anxiety causing, and I loved it. I loved it. It's so well written. I don't think I gave it 5 stars because I had some beef with the ending. I definitely had some beef with the ending. But for the most part, this is a really phenomenal book. Phenomenal. Another one that took me by surprise. Another one. So I thought I would love this, and I did. Obviously, I did. But I didn't love it for why I thought I would love it. So I thought I'd love this because I had really enjoyed a previous book by this author. But this is not that. This book is not that. And a lot of people who thought they'd love it because they loved The Snow Child hated this book. I loved this book. This is Blackwood's Blue Sky by Eowyn Ivey. I don't read books about animals. I don't read books where kids are confused or scared or hurt or harmed. I don't do that stuff. I did, and I loved it. This is about mother-child relationships, and you're not going to think that until you finish reading it. But this is an allegory. It's a dark fairy tale. Think Grimm's originals. and it's well worth your time, but you have to know what you're going in for. I think people were confused. I think people were confused about what they were getting, and they didn't take it at face value. And I think that if you take it at face value, if you go in with no expectation and you just let it unfold and be what it is, you're going to be blown away by it. I thought it was excellent. Excellent. There was a time when I thought this was going to be my favorite of the year, but I read it early. I read it really early in the year, and there were so many good books to come. So this is Grady Hendrix, Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. This is about young girls in the 1950s, 60s who find themselves pregnant, either through, poor choices that they made or against their will. And their families make them disappear to a maternity house for a while, where they will, in the South, in Florida, where they will, this is also a really hot environment. Interesting. Anyway, they have their babies, give their babies up, and then return to life as normal. But nothing will ever be normal. What's happening in this, though, is that there's this library on wheels that arrives, and the librarian gives one of the girls a book about witchcraft. And things get kind of crazy. The first, I would say, third, maybe a little more of this book, you're reading it and you're like, where's the Grady Hendrix horror? This is just straight up very well written character development. This is just setting. This is just historical fiction. And then boom, it all explodes. And boy, does it explode. It's so good. I love Grady Hendrix. Love Grady Hendrix. This is one of the very first books I read this year. This is Erin A. Craig's The 13th Child. I'm looking at it going, I want to reread it now. I feel that way about a lot of these. I don't even know how to tell you about this book. There's folklore that the 13th child belongs to the gods. And so this family who has 13 children cannot possibly support them all, gives this child to the gods. The god comes to take her away. He's like the god of death, kind of. He's like death. He's like the Grim Reaper a little bit. He takes her to this other world, and she's given everything she possibly needs, but she's alone. And she spends the time reading and learning. She's going to be a healer. So he's teaching her how to be present, to heal, or not, depending on what's needed. And it's her entire life story. It's her entire life story and her entire relationship with this god. And it's really good. It's really, really good. All right, I'm going to show you all of these in very quick succession because they are the end of the gold, and we're about to get into the platinum. We're so close to finding out my favorite book of the year, but I'm going to show you all these. Catherine Sinners. So I love how they all go together. These Book of the Month ones are so pretty. There's The Bodyguard, The Rom-Commers, and Hello Stranger. They all made it into gold. I love them all. They were all rereads for me. Hello Stranger is the Catherine Sinner that started it all for me. I had read The Bodyguard and didn't really get on with it. I didn't dislike it, but I didn't really remember it. And then I got an arc of Hello Stranger, read the arc, loved it, went, why haven't I read more of this woman? And then just started reading all of them, and then did this year of reading a Catherine Sinder every month for a year. Now we're besties. I ask myself, what would a Catherine Sinder character do? Don't do what they would do. Don't do. You'll get yourself in trouble. These are all platinum. They're all receiving the platinum. It means these are the cream of my reading crop this year. There are 6 that I'm going to show you before I show you the 7th. These are in no particular order, I think. But the 7th one, I'll give you a warning, but the 7th one will be my favorite book of the year. But all of these were in the running for favorite book of the year. Letters of a Portuguese Nun, Uncovering the Mystery Behind the 17th Century Forbidden Love, Miriam Sear. This is nonfiction. This is about letters of a Portuguese nun. And you just got to read it. Find an interview on YouTube with Miriam Sear. Listen to the story. It'll take your whole life by storm. This was such a little, like, I thought when this arrived and I was like, this is the book? I was like, what is this little novelty? No. This is deep research and it's really, really good. I read this book 3 times this year. 3 times. Do you know how very close I was to making this my favorite book of the year? 3 times. Hester Fox's A Magic Deep and Drowning. I read the ARC. I read the hard copy, and then I listened to the audio. I love this book. I love the way it's told. I love the darkness. I love the ending. I love everything about this book. It starts with a girl and her like nurse nanny on a beach seeing a beached whale, and then it's like a Dutch sort of a location. And then ending up having to hurry home because evil mother and father are going to be so upset if they're late, if they find out that they stopped to look at this whale, this beached whale. And when she gets home, she's told that a marriage has been arranged for her. She's like 17, 18. A marriage has been arranged for her, and she doesn't even care who it is. She will just be happy to be married and to have her own household and to get away from her mother and her father. This is the start, the very, very start, the first like 10 pages of the story. One day she's in the kitchen preparing for the arrival of the unknown man that she's to marry. And she meets this fish delivery guy who she flirts with, because he flirts with her. And she doesn't get that kind of attention ever. She never has an opportunity to get that kind of attention. He lies to her and tells her that he is there, like sent ahead by her fiance. There's something about him. This is such a good book. Yeah, I'm gonna read this again. It's so good. This one, Jane Eyre. So I read this in January. I'm currently reading this out loud, every single word, with a group of 19 ninth graders, all of which are reading it for the first time. And then I'm going to do it again because I'll get a new section of kiddos and I'll read it again with 9 kiddos in the second section. That'll be 3 times. So that'll be 3 times in 14 months that I've read this book, but it's my favorite book and it never gets old. And it's so much fun to read it with kids who don't know. It's very, very fun. The last Katherine Center you'll see, my favorite Katherine Center for sure, How to Walk Away. I did a whole ranking Katherine Center's books video. If you want to know my exact thoughts about any of these or synopsises according to me, you can look those up. But this is so good. Okay, so this was really seriously for a very long time what I thought would be my favorite book of the year, but it's not. This is Happiness by Niall Williams. This is about the inhabitants of a small town called Faha, where it's always raining, it's always wet. And Christy, this guy who shows up because he's working on getting telephone lines into all of the homes in Faha, and how the young man at the house in Faha that he's staying, how that young man helps him, but like with the culture and everything, and how Christy helps him. But there's a mystery going on here. There's something else. Like there's another reason why Christy is here. And it's so beautiful. It's so good. Can we just take a moment just to listen to the words of Niall Williams. So the whole first chapter, let me read you the first chapter. This is it, the first chapter. It had stopped raining. That's the whole first chapter. Nobody in Faha could remember when it started. Rain there on the western seaboard was a condition of living. It came straight down and sideways, frontwards, backwards, and any other words God could think of. It came in sweeps and waves, sometimes in veils. It came dressed as drizzle, as mizzle, a mist, as showers, frequent and widespread, as a wet fog, as a damp day, a drop, a dreeping, an in and out downpour. It came the fine day, the bright day, and the day promised dry. It came at any time of the day and night, and in all seasons, regardless of calendar and forecast, until in Faha your clothes were rain, and your skin was rain, and your house was rain, with a fireplace. It came off the gray vastness of an Atlantic that threw itself against the land like a lover once spurned and resolved not to be so again. It came accompanied by seagulls and smells of salt and seaweed. It came with cold air and curtain light. It came like a judgment, or, in benign versions, like a blessing God had forgotten he had left on. It came for a handkerchief of blue sky, came on westerlies, sometimes, why not, on easterlies, came in clouds that broke their backs on the mountains in Kerry and fell into Clare, making mud the ground and blind the air. It came disguised as hail, as sleet, but never as snow. It came softly sometimes, tenderly sometimes, in spears turned to kisses, in rain that pretended it was not rain, that had come down to be closer to the fields whose green it loved and fostered, until it drowned them. All of which to attest to the one truth in Faha: it rained. But now it had stopped. Yeah. It should have been my favorite book. I almost said no. I firmly believe in my favorite book of the year. It was almost this one. Hannah Coulter by Wendell Berry. Let's take a moment. It was genuinely almost this one. Part 1, Chapter 1, The Story Continuing. I picked him up in my arms, and I carried him home. So Nathan would end the last of the stories of his childhood as he told it to our children. This was in 1940. Nathan was 16. He and Jarrett, his dad's brother, Burley, and his grandpa Dave, the three of them, had gone down into the river bottom, taking a team and wagon to help a neighbor put up hay. It was hot weather, hay weather, the last of July. Dave Coulter, whom I too learned to call Grandpa, though I never knew him, was 80 years old, no longer much use for work. While the younger men loaded and hauled in and unloaded the hay, Grandpa Coulter puttered about, or sat in the shade and slept, or carried water to the others when they needed a drink. Toward the middle of the afternoon, he had one of the sick spells that he called miseries, and Jarrett told Nathan, walk home with him, help him along, take care of him. The two of them went up the hill together, stopping often. When they had got almost home, Grandpa staggered and went down and couldn't be wakened. Nathan was a big boy by then, strong, and he gathered Grandpa into his arms and carried him the rest of the way up to the house where Grandma Coulter, whom I do remember a little, hurried to open the door and to make a place to lay him down. Our story is the story of our place, how we married and came here, moved into this old house and made it livable again while we lived in it, how we raised our children here and worked and hoped and paid the mortgage and made a pretty good farm of a place that had been hard used and then almost forgotten, how we continued making our life here day by day after the children were gone, how we kept this place alive and plentiful. And so it goes, and so it goes, and so will I soon, I suppose, for I have here in front of me my favorite book of the year. What will it be? Do you know? Do you know what my favorite book of the year is? Can you make a guess? Here it is. The Lion Women of Tehran by Marjane Kamali. This book will not leave me. This was a 12 and 12 recommendation by my friend Lindsay. This is about very strong women. This is about friendship and loyalty, betrayal and grief. This is about finding joy in the midst of life. This is about overcoming the things that you cannot control. This is about realizing that sometimes the best people can do is not so good. This is about forgiveness. This is my favorite book of the year. Yeah, it surprised even me. It surprised even me, honestly. I knew that I loved it. I knew that I never stopped thinking about it. I don't remember what month I read it in. Was it June? July? Somewhere in there. July, somewhere between July and September, I think. And watch, somebody's gonna go back and look and be like, it was in March. I don't think it was. I think it was in like July, June, July, August, September, somewhere around there. I feel, so here's the thing. Here was the clincher. I don't want to tell you about these stories. It's about two girls and how they become friends. At the end, you follow these two girls' lives. At the end, there's a scene, like a prologue wrap-up scene. It's not a prologue, but it's like feels kind of like that, like 20 years later. It's not 20 years later, but sometime later. And I feel like that's real. I know that it's not, but I feel like that's happening somewhere in the world. It feels like these are real people. These feel real, but also like maybe historical characters, historical people. These feel like they're there living, like I could get on a plane and go visit. And that was the clincher for me. That was the clincher. This is my favorite book of the year. It joins the ranks of last year's The Ministry of Time. Very different books. Also, though, I might point out, book of the month. Both of those were book of the month. But I read this not because of book of the month, but because it was recommended to me, and I would not have read it if it weren't for my 12 and 12 challenge. I never would have picked this up. This cover would never have spoken to me at all. But the content is so good. So good. Do you want to hear a little bit? I stood on the lacquered floor, a small woman in black with a rectangular name badge on my chest. My coiffed, contented look was calculated, so I'd appear not just satisfied, but quietly superior. In America, I'd learned the secret to being a successful salesperson was to act like one of the elite, as if spritzing perfume on customers' blue-veined wrists were doing them a favor. A sea of haughty New Yorkers swerved to avoid my spray. Thank God for the more down-to-earth women, the cooks, the bakers, coming up to the floor from the basement home goods section. They were too polite to reject the fragrant droplets I offered, orange, lily, jasmine, and some notes, and rose notes, nested in the lines of my palms and the fibers of my clothes. Look at you, Ellie. Soon you'll take over this whole brand. I better watch my back. My friend and coworker Angela, returning from her cigarette break, sidled up and whispered in my ear. The scent of her Hubba Bubba gum couldn't hide the smoke on her breath. I shivered at the reek of tobacco. The bitter, sour notes would forever remind me of one long-ago night in Iran. The night when an act of betrayal changed the entire course of my friendship with Homa and both of our lives. From the moment I'd read Homa's letter last night, I'd been a wreck. I batted away Angela's compliments, said I wasn't doing all that well, really, and that I had a headache because I hadn't eaten all day. I just might faint, I added, with a touch of melodrama. It was a relief when Angela was whisked away by a needy customer. My mother always said the envy of others invites the evil eye to cast doom on us. She'd often told me that being perceived as too competent, happy, or successful could summon misfortune. I knew belief in the powers of other people's jealousy and jinxing of an evil eye needed to be cast off, but at the age of 38, in the middle of the massive Manhattan department store, I was still unwittingly beholden to superstition. The truth of who I was could not be escaped, nor could the flaw I had spent years trying to quash and erase. The guilty one had always been me. And so begins The Lion Women of Tehran. Highly recommend this. Give it a read. Give it a read. That's it. That's 2025 wrapped. I still need to, I think tomorrow you'll see my my December wrap up. I don't generally put any books from my December wrap up on here because I feel like they are too close, but there are some really, 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 really good ones on there that maybe I'll slip into 2026. We'll see. We'll see. But I read, just for context, I read 190 books. That was exactly my reading goal. And I read 190 books this year, and I felt like 42 of them, you can see Hannah Coulter wiggling over here. I felt like 42 of them were worth a major award. 42 out of 190. That's not bad. That's impressive. Yay, books. Until we meet again, which will be very soon because you have to see my wrap up. But until we meet again, let's go read.